Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Price List Update Summary video series brought to you by Actionable Insights. You've got Harrison here and you've got Whatley there. And this month, we're here to talk about the changes to the Xactimate price list in June of 2022. Whatley, I'm excited to get into the numerous changes. There's not that many changes this month, which is actually a surprising difference. In fact, I'll give it away right now. There are 0 new line items in July of 2022. Whatley, this happens about once a year, where there will be a month where no new line items are released, but instead there is a kind of reconciliation or looking at existing line items. So we still have plenty of changes to existing line items that we need to talk about in today's call about Xactimate's June 22 price list. Real quick, if you are interested in learning more about Xactimate, the price list, the line items, how to use them, tweak them, apply them, justify them, we have an Xactimate estimating and digital assets class coming up almost next week, July 19th through the 21st. So if you're interested in learning more about this stuff and settling property insurance claims with Xactimate, with Actionable Insights, we've got our only summer class coming up Tuesday, July 19th through Thursday, July 21st. Wally, how are you feeling today?
Like I just popped positive 8 minutes ago for the Rona. So not great, man.
We had scheduled this call for like a couple hours from now, and you were like, "Hey, can we record right now? Because I think I got dip." Because I'm just like, "Hey."
Those of you watching, like everybody's got it by now, so you generally know.
Actually, still haven't gotten it.
You haven't. You're like immune.
I'm still
like a Neanderthal DNA or something.
My wife was positive all last week at the house, but yet here I am, still negative. So,
well done, dude.
We got to have a few humans out there that are in the mix. All right, so beneficial for us that there's not a ton of new line items for you and I to cover today to make this call a little bit faster than it normally would be. So let's skip to changes to existing line items right away. As you can see here on my screen, I'm going to have, I have Xactimate open, X1. I've got a June 2022 price list on my left. I've got July 2022 on my right. And we're going to take a look at the changes to existing line items. Now, first off, it's important to note, there were no yield changes this month. No adjustments to productivity of labor components or material components or anything. So no yield changes, but we do have some interesting text changes and additional item information changes. First off, there is this line item, WTRFCWG, add for tear out of wood floor glued down over concrete substrate. And Xactimate's pricing department has added some clarification here in the additional item information to say that this line item also applies to vinyl plank flooring. Traditionally, it said salvageable solid or engineered wood flooring, but now it also says includes vinyl plank flooring. So essentially, if you're tearing out vinyl plank flooring that's been glued down over a concrete substrate, you should be adding this add for line item for the additional difficulty in tearing out vinyl plank flooring when it's been glued down. Any thoughts?
Yeah, I see this as a slightly contractor-centric move because vinyl plank flooring, even if it's glued down, is typically going to be easier to remove than wood. I could be wrong, and if I am, comment down below. But boy, there's been nothing that sticks in my brain as how difficult it was to remove glue down flooring if it was wood or engineered wood flooring, because all the particles just stick in the glue and you end up getting a wolf out, and that was only half the battle, and then you got a diamond grind and so on. So and I imagine that vinyl would be easier.
And well, we've also been talking about that diamond grinding, FCW grind. If anybody's not familiar with the floor covering wood line item around diamond grinding after you pull glue down flooring up.
Yeah, and I think it would be warranted to use that line item even if it's vinyl here, because you're just trying to remove the glue residue. It's not like the glue comes off of the concrete substrate. It just kind of splits the difference. Half of it goes with the building material and half of it stays on the slab.
Sounds about right. We have a CLN line item here, WTRSP, apply odor counteractant liquid spray. Seems like there was some confusion about what this line item was intended to be used for, because it used to say this odor counteractant is typically applied with a sprayer. Now it's been clarified as to this intention of the line item. This odor counteractant is typically applied with a sprayer and is intended to help eliminate odors caused by bacteria, fungi, urine, vomit, or smoke. And so one of the things in preparing for this call you and I were talking about was it's possible this line item was being applied in COVID-related scenarios or like, right? You see a liquid spray, apply counteractant or something. Well, this line item, DODRSP, in the CLN category is very specific to applying odor counteractant, and Verisk has clarified in the additional item information, this is really just to treat odors. And here's some examples of the odors that it would be designed to treat. All right. Next, we have some changes to some ELE line items. Rewiring, copper rewiring. We've seen these line items come up plenty of times over the years. So let's take a look. First is a circuit breaker main disconnect. They've updated the line item description to say up to 100 amp instead of 100 amp, which is a great change. While we've been talking about these types of changes for years, right? What if you have a circuit breaker that's less than 100 amps? There was no clear line item that you're supposed to use. Previously in June, it just said quality 100 amp, but now it says quality up to 100 amps with clarification in the line item description that says up to 100 amp. So now it should be clear that if you need to deploy a circuit breaker or install a circuit breaker that's less than 100 amps, this will be the line item to do it.
Yeah, this is helpful. I think a lot of adjusters and contractors were conflating the 100 versus 120 amp, and it's pretty different. The price is like 30% different. So that matters. I think the next update would be to make BRKMD read that it's 101 amp to 149 amp, and that way it fits in between, because it's one of those line items similar to how like the box trucks used to be, where you kind of end up in no man's
12 to
land.
14 and then 15 to 17, right? Or 16 to 18.
Yeah, there's some weird overlap and some
Meaning
gaps in there.
There was always a number that wasn't quite covered. That
yeah.
15-foot truck, you would never find a
We
line
don't know
item
what to
for
do
it.
with that one.
Is
So
it 16 or is it 14?
Yeah, I feel like it, not that 140 amp circuit breaker is that common. Like typically it's broken up on 25 amp intervals. But anyhow, this could be made more clear with a simple adjustment to the line item description.
Yeah, I find it curious that they only made this kind of line item description change and additional item information change to the smallest amp line item here, because when you go into the 125 amp, it says quality 110 to 125 amps.
Yeah, so maybe it's not 125 to 149. So that just proved at the point. So but then again, we have this gap here.
It's now not all named the same. There's no range in the middle line item here. There is again a range from 150 to 200 in the largest amp line item. So it's like the middle one's kind of the odd man out by not having a range that explains in the line item description its intention.
Yeah, you got it. This is an easy adjustment they'll likely make.
We'll provide some feedback as a outcome of this call. All right. Lastly, last month we saw an incredible number of line items get changed to say, hey, this includes staples and always included staples. Well, we got more this month. I
don't know which one of you restored was going around counting individual staples and invoicing for it, but one of you cats was doing that. So now we are explicitly saying that staples are in the line item.
Yes. So floor covering vinyl, you've got the independent analysis wood underlayment line item here right now. Clearly says the default line item includes all labor and staples or nails, right? Same thing with the siding, aluminum, standard grade steel, seamless aluminum, right? They all now include staples alongside it. Here, I'll open up this one here to show, what did it include in June? Aluminum siding, starter strip, J trim inside, etc. Now it's very clear include staples. Now, note the pricing between these two line items changed by a single penny per unit. And if you wanted to get down and dirty, let's see here. If there was a component added, nope. The component's always been there for the staples. It just didn't say it in the line item description. So what do I
so
take?
Somebody was doing that, and really they shouldn't have been, because if they knew how to pull up the components, they would have said it's already included. Like across the board, nails, drywall screws, staples are in the line item. I can't think of any
Typically,
line
yes.
item where it would make sense to break out that minute hardware. Now, some line items
Sure.
exclude hardware like hurricane straps and hurricane clips when you're dropping an OSB board on roof trusses, like that is commonly omitted but often warranted line item. So I'm not saying all hardware, but anyhow, as it relates to staples or drywall screws or nails, to the best of my knowledge, it's all included in the relative line items.
So I want to take a moment because as a trainer, as an Xact certified trainer, it always makes me sad to see this change be necessary because as you indicated, it looks like somebody was not opening up the components to actually see what is in the line item. So as a quick reminder for those out here, this is something we train towards at Actionable Insights. You should almost always be looking at the components of a line item, and not just once in your career. Components change, they get added, they get removed. Silicone caulk has been added to a litany of countertop and sink line items in the last 12 months. So if you're invoicing for silicone caulk while replacing a countertop, it may already be in the line item and you're opening yourself up to pushback as people are reviewing your scope. So you can always click the line item, come over here to the right tab, right side tab of the quick entry window for a unit price. We're going to hit the I for information and take a look at the various components. Looks like we have one labor component for siding installer and about 7 or so material components. So if you're not sure what is in the line item, you can always look at the additional item information and say, hey, here it is, what's in here. But most importantly is to go to the components and actually see what is there. More than words, what actual components are in the line item to be able to figure out what do I need to add, what do I need to remove, where am I double dipping, what am I missing? All right, miscellaneous line item changes. All of these grout line items, let me snap this back here real quick. In the FCS, floor covering stone, FCT, floor covering tile, and even the TIL, like tile category, they've been clarified, or they've updated the life expectancy and depreciation. So let's actually come here to line edit options or item edit options. Let's look at the view item information. Okay, used to be for this regrout stone floor, average life expectancy 4 years, depreciation 25% per year. Now, average life expectancy is 10 years, average depreciation of 10% per year. So that's nice to see kind of a reevaluation of the life expectancy of this kind of installed material and updating it in the software so that contractors and adjusters that are talking about depreciation or working on a large loss and applying it to a particular project or scope have some more clarity around what would be expected for this.
I think that chemicals have gotten a lot better such that they probably depreciate slower now than they used to a decade or so ago.
Fair. All right. By the way, that's it. Those are the changes to the existing line items in July of 2022. Let us briefly take a look at some of the changes, like miscellaneous changes, not to line items specifically, but something that we've seen a lot. I know I continue to pay more at the gas pump. It's expensive out here in California to buy gas. The Xactimate pricing department continues to look at rising gas costs, the impact of these fuel costs on property insurance claims and contractors' ability to perform work. In fact, if you're not giving pricing feedback, there are many different ways to give pricing feedback to Xactimate about fuel costs and alike. And in fact, if you've not heard or seen the new Xactware pricing analyst course that they're generally offering for free, where you can learn more about the price list and become a trusted advocate of pricing and be able to give pricing feedback to Xactimate because they know you know your stuff after you take their course. Essentially, what we saw a couple months ago, Whatley, was an increase of retail labor rates. And Xactimate was getting information, and if they got information that it went up by, overall retail labor rates went up by 80 cents because of fuel costs, then that's what they made it. But at a minimum, back in March, April, they raised retail labor rates up by at least a minimum so that we could try to address the initial impact of these surging fuel costs. So we have another change here in July 2022. Fuel cost increases were included in the retail labor rates this month. based on the national average increase of fuel between May 23rd and June 13th. Retail labor rates for the USA were increased by a minimum of 40 cents per hour, and in Canada, a minimum of 28 cents per hour. So it is possible that retail labor rates went up more than 40 cents per hour if Xactimate got feedback that indicated that pricing went up more than that. But if they got feedback that pricing went up by less than that, all they're saying is that all retail labor rates in America were increased by a minimum of 40 cents per hour to continue to try to address the surging fuel costs and impact on contractors being able to perform in the field. Whatley, any thoughts, any reactions? We've seen lots
the
of
fuel
online
cost
conversations.
is like a red herring. First of all, I don't really think it's about fuel cost increasing. I think it's about inflation. First of all, inflation is what's driving fuel cost up. It seems like that's absent from this conversation. One, I think one of the ways that we're seeing inflation expressed the most acutely is in building material and the associated labor. There's a huge labor shortage if you want to build a home, either a new home or in the restoration ecosystem. It's hard to find credible humans to do the work, and there's still a lot of money flowing through the system in terms of unemployment to a lot of those workers. And so perhaps in the near term that will expire. Our labor markets will return to normal to some extent or another. But let's not lose sight that it's not just about fuel. Like, what's really driving that if you go to 40,000 feet? It's inflation. And we can buy less fuel with the dollars that we have. The same way we can buy less avocados. You know, all of the things around us have gone up in price nearly the same amount as their fuel. But you've got this Russia situation going on, and people happen to just kind of track the price of fuel. Harrison, how much does it cost when you buy a red bell pepper from Sprouts? You know?
Off the top of my head, no.
Yeah, it's because nobody knows that, right? But maybe that price has gone up by 50%, but nobody knows how
it's
to
not
measure
plastered on every street corner as I drive to work.
So, anyhow, thoughts about this? Actionable did I think a good job. Your right arm, Martin, he scrambled to get a macro together for the marketplace, and that totally made sense in March when there were such extreme prices, surging
Price changes, yes.
Price changes, and the price list we knew was going to take 60 days to react. Whether it's warranted or not to bill for fuel service charge now, I think you better have a good reason while you're doing it, because I think the pricing department is doing a decent job to like track that best they can. It probably tails, they probably admit that, but there's also a benefit to trailing because it trails on the upside. So let's just say we get inflation under control. That would be cool. And like prices, you know, for commodities, the market falls out and things return to normal. The price list will essentially overpay the restorer for 30 to 60 days while things normalize. So it cuts both ways. And I think that's often forgotten about as we discuss discrepancies in the price list. As long as things are fluctuating, yeah, it might trail in, but it also trails on the way out. So it generally finds its level, in my opinion.
One thing I've noticed in this conversation about fuel costs and inflation, especially in Xactimate Ninjas, our Facebook group. If you're not in Xactimate Ninjas, but you use Xactimate and you're on Facebook, join us. It's a sweet place. We've got 16,000 people talking Xactimate all day. There's a lot of different ways to approach invoicing for rising fuel costs. And the nice thing is that there's not just one way. There's a million different ways. And it's unique to every business in many different ways. People have different ways of tracking their costs, tracking their fuel expenditures, and then trying to figure out how do I explain changes or individual line items I'm included to address these surging costs to be able to perform this claim that's much more expensive now than it was even 4 months ago. So I just like to see that the pricing department is still working on it, still collecting feedback, and still making changes to address rising prices as much as they can. All right, lastly, it's not always, but occasionally the pricing department in these monthly updates will publish kind of a look at what's coming, what line items will exist potentially in the future. Here's what they added this year: items or this month potentially coming up, items or add-on items for installing fencing in cold weather or difficult areas. We've seen this one before, so they're still working on fencing in cold weather or difficult areas. Items for drywall returns for commercial windows. That falls in line with what you and I have been talking about for 2 years of more and more commercial related line items in the Xactimate price list.
Yep.
Items for metal gable cornice returns and strips, as well as items for oak hollow core bifold doors. So we don't know if those line items are coming next month, or if they're coming 6 months from now, but it is nice for the pricing department to give us a preview of what they're thinking about, what they're working on. If you know of a line item that should exist but does not, tell us. Go to getinsights.org. We have on our website there in the top right, doing this on the fly. Let's see here. Book. Yep. Bring this over onto the call. Whatley, we meet with the pricing department on a regular basis, and we talk about line items that should exist that potentially that don't with the pricing department. If you are in the field using Xactimate and you see that your teams are doing things, but there's no line item for that activity, come to getinsights.org, go to the top right under advance the cause and head to line item request. We like speaking data. We like knowing what people are asking for all around the country. So if you've got an idea of a line item that should exist, help us help you, and head to getinsights.org and let us know what line items you think should exist that do not yet. Whatley, anything else?
No, man. Wish me luck. I'm going to go take a nap.
Okay. Thank you, everybody, for following today. Hope you enjoyed. Reminder, the best place to watch these videos is always at getinsights.org, where you can click the hyperlinked line items below and jump directly to the point in this video where we talk about that particular change. Thank you so much, and we're looking forward to seeing you next month in August. In the meantime, good luck settling those claims.
Keep building.